'86, I chaired the drafting committee for Proposition M. So I'm here to certify and testify that Proposition M did not solve the Middle East crisis. Proposition M did not bring about world peace, and Proposition M did not end human cruelty. All of those are absolutely true, and none of those were the objective of Proposition M. I had asked that the text of Proposition M be disseminated, and I'm told that it has been, and therefore you can understand my surprise at the previous speaker's attestations about what Proposition M's priority policies failed to do. I can only say that absolutely correct. That was not their intention. The intention of Proposition M's priority policies was not to replace the general plan nor the planning code of the city and county of San Francisco. It wasn't its intention, which is my understanding of the gentleman's objection, nor was it legal to do so. Let me try to tell you what Proposition M did, and what it set out to do, and I believe basically accomplished that reality, except in the case of the master plan. The official name of the Proposition M campaign was a Campaign for Accountable Planning, the CAP campaign. And what we were about was trying to create a system that overcame insider development money in setting development policy in San Francisco. Surprise, surprise. At the time, the principal form of this tomfoolery were commercial office buildings. And we set about limiting commercial office building and removing what in our view was the principal nefarious device that involved both elected officials, appointed officials, and the planning department, which was the spot rezoning, the total and complete rezoning of otherwise zoned properties to allow the development of large commercial office buildings, sometimes simply one large commercial office building. And what our research indicated was that in many jurisdictions in California, zoning follows the policies of the general plan. Zoning and general plan policies are the same. Zoning classifications are designed to carry out the policies of the general plan, to implement the policies of the general plan. That is not the case in San Francisco. We have a general plan that stands totally and completely unlinked to land use and zoning policy in San Francisco. And therefore, you change the zoning policy, you change zoning, you change policy, no matter what the general plan states. The general plan is established in state law, in the Constitution of California. No county cannot have a general plan. More specifically, counties must have specific, quote-unquote, elements of a general. There has to be a housing element, there has to be a transportation element, there has to be an open space element, there has to be a public safety element. All of these are mandated in state law. Our difficulty was in San Francisco, these great plans and many of the policies of the general plan are commendable and should be followed. The problem is that there's this cruel disconnect. It has nothing to do with actual zoning. So the first objective of Proposition M was to require that the general plan, in fact, define zoning classifications in San Francisco. And that is the point of Section 1, Part 1, the master plan of Proposition M. And it called for two things. One, between the passage of Proposition M in November of 1986 and January 1988, certification of a election happens about the following December. So it would go into effect in January 1977. We would give the city and county 1 year, January 77 to January 87 to January 88, to come up with a zoning system that incorporates the policies of the various elements of the general plan. And we laid out a broad and inclusive public hearing process for that to happen. In the intervening period, during that period, no project, individual project, nor rezoning could occur that would be inconsistent with priority policies that would be added to section 101 of the planning code and made numbered, so they are prioritized. There's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, clearly numbered, clearly prioritized, that these priority policies would be used to resolve inconsistencies in the general plan, of which elements mutually contradicted each other. And that these priority policies would be used by city officials and by the public to go through the various elements of the general plan, come up with what the core policies were, and have zoning reflect them. You cannot, for example, say it is important to preserve, or priority to preserve, the character of existing neighborhoods and preserve existing housing, and rezone the city to allow 3, 4, 5, 6 times the density of existing neighborhoods. That would be inconsistent with the priority policies. So the idea was to create a zoning system that carries out the policies of the general plan, and to resolve inconsistencies within the general plan, you have the priority policies. Part 2 of the measure was to deal with the principle of the time, at the time, the principal economic device driving change in all of our neighborhoods and displacing people, and that was commercial office development and its massive expansion into both the Tenderloin, Chinatown, the south of Market, and in the downtown plan, the redesignation of an entire new central business district, twice the size of the old CBD. And so we saw this rapidly expanding commercial office sector as driving everything that was wrong, and so we decided to limit it. Before Proposition M, the city approved sometimes 6 million square feet of commercial office space in a given year. We limited it to 1 million square feet. At no time could 1 million square feet of commercial office space be approved with 100,000 of that square feet reserved for small office buildings. Office buildings 50,000 square feet or below. The other 900,000 square feet could be for large projects. And if it was one 900,000 square foot building, it would be one 9,000 square foot building. The third objective of Proposition M was to create, because our analysis and the analysis of EIRs just passed, CEQA had just been passed by the state of California, and had just been applied, and a good deal of litigation, some of it coming from the people who brought you Proposition M, Sue Hester, who litigated the city and created the concept of cumulative impacts, that the city had to address in an EIR not only the impacts of a specific project, but the impacts of every similar project that the city had recently approved. Because the city was looking at commercial office buildings one at a time. Well, this will only create a demand for 2 new buses, even though they'd already approved 10 others. It didn't say what the cumulative impact on the transit system, 5,000 new folks trying to get downtown between 9 and 5 would be, or 10,000, or 15,000. So the concept was limit commercial office space, which was driving the changes, that were displacing people and causing great discomfort in San Francisco's neighborhoods. And the third aspect, the third point of Proposition M, was to create a local employment program. Every existing San Franciscan that would be hired, and the same is true in high tech today, folks. Every existing San Franciscan that was hired in an office job would mean one less new rider on Muni and one less new affordable housing or housing project and one less car, because they were already here. And so we tried to bend the curve and make employment requirements, resident employment requirements, part of the development approval projects for new commercial office buildings. We won, much to our surprise, by a massive 900 votes. Dianne Feinstein was apoplectic and directed her city attorney, Louise Rennie, to sue Proposition M. Proposition M had been placed on the ballot by 4 votes of the Board of Supervisors after a Superior Court judge disallowed 34,000 signatures because we put the sponsors, according to the judge, and it was an interpretation, names on the back of the petition instead of the front of the petition. So the judge ruled that Proposition M would be taken off the ballot. As you know, 4 supervisors can put a measure on the ballot. Proposition M was written as a citizen initiative. One of the things that citizens can do that the Board of Supervisors cannot do is amend the general plan. Think about it. The Board of Supervisors, if the Board of Supervisors could amend the general plan, every major development project would be amended in every Tuesday. So the charter says the board can't amend the general plan without general plan amendments and being initiated in the planning department, in the planning commission, and then referred to the Board of Supervisors, or directed by the sovereign of the city, which is the people, through an initiative measure. And that's how we drafted Proposition M, to require the city to undertake this extensive recalibration of zoning and the master plan. And we could do that since it was a citizen initiative. Once we were disallowed and placed on the ballot by the Board of Supervisors, it became a supervisorial initiative. And the Superior Court struck one portion of one part of Proposition M down, and that was the requirement to bring about a consistent master plan and zoning system. And that was struck down in June of 1987, immediately. What stayed in place were the priority policies that now are just in Section 101 of the Planning Code. And they are no more or no less specific or presumptive than any other policy of the general plan.